They smile when you enter the room and speak the moment you leave. You don't see it, but Machiavelli would. To him, gossip was never harmless. It was a strategic tool used by cowards to cut the legs out from under those they envy without ever drawing their sword. And if you don't act decisively and strategically, you become their entertainment, their topic, their slow destruction. Because make no mistake, gossip isn't just words. It's a quiet war for power. Machiavelli believed that a ruler could endure betrayal, survive exile, even defeat armies, but lose everything if he didn't control narrative. Reputation, after all, precedes you, and gossip reshapes it like poison in wine, subtle but lethal. So here's the brutal truth. You don't deal with gossipers by confronting them emotionally. You deal with them by controlling the game. And Machiavelli gave us 5 deadly accurate ways to do just that. The first, never react how they expect. Gossipers thrive on emotional volatility. They want you to respond, to defend, to clarify. Because the moment you do, you've already lost. You've validated the rumor by acknowledging it. Machiavelli would say, a man who explains himself is a man already under suspicion. Instead, when gossip reaches your ears, do something terrifying. Smile. Act as though it amuses you, even if it burns. Because your silence signals power. It tells observers that you are unshaken and in control, that you've heard the whispers and decided they are beneath response. This weaponized indifference drives gossipers mad. They expect fire and you give them ice. And that leads to the second rule. Punish the weak link quietly. Machiavelli warned that the gossiper is never alone. There is always a carrier, someone pretending to help you by just letting you know. But real allies extinguish rumors. They don't deliver them like messages tied to arrows. When someone brings you gossip, they're not just informing you, they're testing you. They want to know, will you crack? Will you react? Will you turn on someone? Here's what Machiavelli would do. He'd trace the gossip back, not to the loudest voice, but to the weakest loyalty. And that person would quietly disappear from his circle. No warnings, no confrontation, just distance, silence, absence. Because gossip dies fastest when it hits a wall of uncertainty, when the gossiper isn't sure who exposed them, when they begin to feel watched. That fear is Machiavellian gold. But if you want the gossip to never start, you must enforce Rule 3. Make yourself unpredictable. Gossip clings to patterns. Predictable people give enemies a blueprint for attack. They know how you'll respond, what you'll deny, and how to trap you with half-truths. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must appear as all things and be none of them. So if you're always serious, laugh suddenly. If you're friendly, turn cold. If you're always present, vanish for days. This inconsistency breaks the gossiper's weapon, narrative. They can't define you because you don't let them. And that shakes their confidence because gossipers fear what they don't understand. Now, the fourth measure is the most ruthless. Elevate someone else publicly. Gossipers want power by subtraction, by pulling you down. So Machiavelli would counter not by defending himself, but by uplifting someone more loyal. Let your praise be strategic. In meetings, in groups, even online, highlight the loyalty and excellence of someone who would never betray you. This does 2 things. It shifts the spotlight. It isolates the gossiper. They'll feel the chill of exclusion. And others will notice, without you ever naming names. Machiavelli didn't believe in direct accusations. He believed in patterns, moves, and consequences without drama. But the final move is the checkmate. Use the gossip to control the gossiper. Machiavelli often kept enemies close, but not out of trust, out of strategy. When you know someone gossips, don't confront them. Feed them. Give them just enough controlled, meaningless information to make them feel powerful. While you watch who they tell, what they add, and how fast it spreads. They become your spy network, without realizing it. And if they ever become a real threat, you already have all the evidence you need to crush their credibility. Because in the end, gossipers aren't strong. They're afraid. Afraid of being unseen. Afraid of being powerless. Afraid of someone like you who knows how to play the long game. Machiavelli didn't destroy enemies with anger. He did it with precision. And gossipers, they're just snakes waiting for the cold. They will always deny it. Even when caught red-handed, gossipers will tilt their heads, offer innocent smiles, and pretend to be misunderstood. It was just concern. I was only repeating what I heard. Or the most insidious, I thought you should know what people are saying. Machiavelli would see right through it. He understood that gossip, like most weapons of the weak, doesn't begin in rage. It begins in envy. The gossiper resents your presence, your confidence, your composure, but they lack the strength to confront you openly. So they bleed your image, drop by drop, word by word. This is why Machiavelli would never argue with them, because the moment you defend yourself, you start playing their game. He'd prefer a different game entirely, one they couldn't even see. Let's take a deeper look at how he'd deploy these 5 measures in a real setting. Imagine you're in a workplace, a family gathering, or a social group. You start hearing murmurs, strange glances, subtle shifts in tone. You're being talked about, and someone you once considered friendly is at the center of it. The first temptation? To confront, to clear the air. But Machiavelli would say, why expose your intentions? Why alert them you've noticed? Instead, you observe, quietly. You begin noticing who suddenly acts awkward around you, who shares less, who makes unnecessary eye contact when someone else jokes at your expense. From there, the second rule activates: punish the weak link. You don't make a scene. You make them irrelevant. If they were part of a project, you reassign them. If they were in your social circle, you redirect your presence elsewhere. And most importantly, you act unaffected, even cheerful. This confuses gossipers more than rage ever could. It makes them question their influence. It makes them paranoid because suddenly the rumor didn't hurt you. It changed you, and they don't know how. But here's the twist. As soon as they're unsure, they'll try to get back in. They'll randomly message you. Start small talk again. Pretend nothing happened. This is where the unpredictability tactic becomes lethal. You respond with unpredictability, sometimes distant, sometimes warm, sometimes completely silent. You shake the rhythm. You deny them a pattern. Machiavelli believed that people plan their moves based on your past behavior. So, to break their power, you must break their predictive model of you. And when you elevate someone else publicly, that's the master stroke. Because gossipers need attention the way fire needs oxygen. When you shine the spotlight on someone who's been quietly loyal, someone they overlook, it does 2 things. It turns attention away from the gossiper, and it sets a new standard for your approval. Now they feel threatened and replaceable, and nothing terrifies a gossiper more than being irrelevant. But the real power move, turn them into a source. Once you've figured out who they are, once you've ensured their gossip has no impact on your status, Machiavelli would use them. You feed them scraps. Tell them an exaggerated version of something harmless. Let it slip you're considering a bold decision, or that you're aligning with someone unexpected. Then you wait, and you listen. You'll know exactly how far your words travel. You'll know which lips are loose, which ears are open. It's information warfare, and you're now in command. But Machiavelli would offer one final warning. Never treat a gossiper like a villain. Treat them like a symptom. Because gossip doesn't survive in silence, it survives in systems that reward it. Environments where weakness is tolerated. Circles where performance matters less than popularity. So you don't just remove the gossiper. You reshape the environment they thrived in. Make loyalty visible. Make betrayal costly. Make strength admired. That's how you end gossip. Not just for today, but for good. In the eyes of Machiavelli, you are not a victim of rumor. You are the architect of reality, and if you control perception, you control power. Power doesn't always walk into the room. Sometimes it whispers before you arrive. That's what gossipers do. They pre-frame you. They soften the floor beneath your feet, so when you speak, it sounds off. They inject doubt into your image so that no matter how strong you are, others start second-guessing what they once admired. Machiavelli would call this the invisible ambush. But here's where he was different from the average strategist. He didn't just react to threats, he anticipated them. He believed your reputation is like armor. Once it cracks, every enemy grows bolder. So his method was clear. You don't wait for gossip to reach you. You inoculate against it before it starts. How? You craft your myth. Gossip spreads in the absence of clarity, so you give people something stronger than rumor. An identity that's too sharp, too defined, too bold to be distorted. Machiavelli would walk among diplomats and rulers who whispered about him constantly. They called him cruel, cunning, heartless. And what did he do? He leaned into it. He became the shadow they feared so fully, so unapologetically, that their whispers only amplified his myth. This is counterintuitive. Most people try to correct how they're perceived, but Machiavelli understood. If you try to seem good, you invite judgment. If you seem powerful, you dominate perception. So if gossipers paint you as cold, be colder. If they say you're calculating, show calculation. If they call you ruthless, make it unwise to cross you. Your enemies will try to sculpt you from clay. Your job is to become stone. But here's the key. Don't overplay your hand. Machiavelli was not about loud dominance. He was about controlled mystery. Because when people don't know your next move, they don't know how to talk about you. And when they guess wrong often enough, they stop guessing. This leads us to a more advanced tactic he might use. Make the gossiper your public supporter. It sounds impossible. But here's how it works. After isolating the gossiper socially, after feeding them false trails and rendering their influence hollow, you invite them into the light, not as an equal, not as a friend, but as a public advocate. Maybe you praise something small they did. Maybe you mention them in passing in a way that appears respectful. You give them a taste of legitimacy, but on your terms. What happens next is brilliant. They now have something to lose. Gossipers operate with no risk. But once they are seen as close to power, even if only for optics, they must protect that illusion, which means they become self-censoring. They won't spread new rumors because it would shatter the proximity they've gained. They may even defend you now just to keep that seat at the table. Machiavelli would never trust this loyalty, but he'd absolutely use it. And should they ever slip again, you've set the stage perfectly for their public downfall. Because remember, when you deal with gossip, the goal is not just to stop this gossiper. It's to make an example, one that tells every silent observer, this is what happens when you speak my name carelessly. That's what power does. It doesn't shout. It whispers back and makes the whole room go quiet. But the final brilliance of Machiavelli's approach, he made gossipers destroy themselves. You just have to keep watching, keep positioning, and at the perfect time, give the rumor legs just enough to walk them off a cliff. The downfall of a gossiper should never feel like revenge. It should feel like gravity, effortless, inevitable, silent. That's how Machiavelli would orchestrate it, not through confrontation, but through precision design. He understood that the moment you make your retaliation emotional, you lose credibility. You seem reactive, bitter, weak. But when the gossiper collapses under the weight of their own words, while you stand still, calm, untouched, that's power. So how exactly do you let them fall? By doing what they never expect. You turn their audience against them. See, a gossiper without listeners is just a fool muttering to themselves. And Machiavelli's strategy was always to control not just the enemy, but the crowd around them. He believed that every social group has invisible lines of power: the respected, the feared, the irrelevant, and the useful. Gossipers think they're in the first group, but you reclassify them in the minds of others, slowly, subtly, permanently. Start by planting doubt in their credibility, not by direct accusation, but by pattern exposure. You ask the right questions at the right time. Isn't it strange how they always seem to know everyone's business? Have you ever noticed how every time there's drama, they're somehow involved? You're not pointing fingers, you're connecting dots, and people start to see what they ignored. Then you let them watch. Let the gossiper speak. Let them spin their usual web. But this time, your silence is louder. You make eye contact. You smile subtly. You say nothing, but say everything. Others will notice the shift. They'll feel the tension. Because here's what Machiavelli understood that most people don't. Gossipers reveal more about themselves than about their targets. The more they talk, the more desperate they seem. The more stories they spread, the more insecure they appear. So Machiavelli would amplify their voice, but only so it could echo against them. And when they finally go too far, slandering the wrong person, making the wrong move, you won't need to lift a finger. Their downfall becomes communal. Everyone sees them for what they are. They're not strategic. They're not witty. They're just noise. And you're the one who never flinched, the one who stayed above it. But Machiavelli would add one last move, one most people are too afraid to make. He'd use the destruction of the gossiper as a public lesson, not by bragging, not by calling attention to it, but by letting others infer your reach. Your silence becomes legendary. Your unpredictability becomes myth. People realize, if that person fell for whispering, what happens if I do? This is how true authority is built, not through endless defenses, but through a few strategic defeats. Because gossip doesn't just fade on its own. It dies when people start asking, what if they hear about this? That's the psychological territory Machiavelli lived in, where your very presence alters behavior, where people become careful with your name, with your story, with their tone when you're not in the room. And when that happens, you've done more than stop the gossip. You've built something much rarer, untouchability. By now, the gossiper is quiet, but don't mistake silence for surrender. Machiavelli would warn you, defeated enemies are never neutralized unless you give them a new role. If you don't, they will return, wounded, embarrassed, and quietly sharpening their knives. Because gossip isn't just a behavior, it's a survival strategy for the powerless. When they can't rise by merit, they try to rise by erosion, eating away at others until they stand taller by comparison. So Machiavelli's fifth and final measure isn't about punishment. It's about containment. You give the gossiper a cage, a golden one. You assign them to a small, visible, but ultimately powerless role. Something that strokes their ego but limits their reach. Let them feel chosen. Let them feel watched. They'll be too distracted managing appearances to cause trouble. And more importantly, others will see that your mercy is control. This is how rulers operate, not by eliminating every threat, but by redefining them. And while that former gossiper smiles in photos, nods in meetings, and pretends to have influence, you know the truth. They've been politically castrated. Machiavelli did this constantly in court politics. When an enemy could not be destroyed without chaos, he'd convert them into a display of his dominance. Everyone knew who they used to be. Everyone saw what they'd become. And it sent a message louder than execution. I don't just defeat enemies, I reshape them. Now let's pull back for a moment. These 5 measures: controlled silence, strategic exile, tactical unpredictability, public praise of loyalty, and reputational repurposing. They're not just tactics, they're a system. A system for protecting your image, controlling narratives, and establishing psychological superiority in any social ecosystem. Whether you're in a corporate setting, a friend group, a public role, or even a digital space, these tools don't just shut down gossipers. They build your legend, because in the Machiavellian mind, there is no greater tragedy than having power and being perceived as weak. And gossip? That's where the first cracks form. So don't let them whisper unchecked. Don't let them spin your story. Instead, make your presence so sharp, so studied, so untouchable that even your absence has weight. Let them say what they will. Let them scheme in corners. Let them spin their webs. And then, without a raised voice, without a dramatic scene, pull the floor out from under them, one cold step at a time. There comes a point where words stop being weapons and start becoming footnotes in your story. That's what Machiavelli ultimately pursued. Not just silence from his enemies, but irrelevance. Because when a gossiper's voice becomes so low, so ignored, so pitied, they cease to be a threat. They become a cautionary tale. But how do you stay above the noise? By understanding the final invisible layer of power, the reputation that speaks before you do. Machiavelli knew that no matter how cunning your strategy, no matter how flawless your moves, you still walk into rooms where you haven't yet spoken. And there, your reputation enters first. If you want to become immune to gossip, not just resistant but untouchable, you have to construct a myth around yourself so deliberate, so consistent, so quietly intimidating that no rumor can take root. This is the opposite of being popular. This is about being understood at a fundamental level, that you are not a man or woman to be taken lightly, that careless words around your name carry consequences, that silence from you is not absence but warning. So you curate your presence like a weapon. You never over-explain. You never chase clarity. You let your actions trail smoke and leave questions. You say little, but when you do, it lands. You rarely praise, but when you do, it elevates. You don't punish often, but when you do, it becomes memory. And all of this creates something Machiavelli valued above all else: deterrence. See, gossip thrives where people believe there's no cost, no consequence, no attention. But the moment people start asking themselves, what happens if this gets back to them? What will they think? Will they retaliate? The gossip dies before it's even spoken, because fear, unlike popularity, protects you in your absence. And Machiavelli believed the ultimate form of control was this: not when people speak your name often, but when they hesitate just before they do. That's when you've reached the highest level. That's when you've become a figure, not a peer, a presence, not a personality. And gossipers? They don't attack legends. They whisper about the weak. They target the exposed. They circle the unguarded. But you're none of those things. Because now you don't just deal with gossipers. You make them obsolete. You turn their noise into background hum. And while they look for listeners, you build a kingdom where words mean less than presence, and reputation is forged in silence, but felt like thunder. That is the Machiavellian way. Cold, precise, unforgettable. And in a world full of whispers, you become the reason they go quiet.